Hello, my name is Victoria Fenton. Welcome to another episode of the Unveil Podcast, where today it is my opportunity to have a solo episode and just talk to you about a few things that I'm noticing in this kind of healing healthcare coaching world, and also to discuss a little bit about what's happening with Unveil, because I'm getting a lot of comments about how things feel like lots happening, lots of really exciting things, and it's true, but let's talk about what's up. But let's begin with the things that I'm noticing, and it's really interesting to me how social media has made the healthcare world an entirely different place. And so we go to influencers to understand what we should eat or drink or take, or whether we should drink or whether we should not, or whether we should be doing psychedelics or drugs or any kind of anything. There's always this constancy of going to others for that opinion. And it's really interesting because when I think about it, I remember researching Amazon ages and ages ago. And the thing about Amazon is, what do you do when you're about to buy a product that you're not really sure of? You go to the reviews section and we listen to it. We listen to other people's opinions. This is actually a really natural thing to do. As human beings, we kind of have this innate sense that other people are who we can learn from. And so we do it as children. We look to other people, usually elders, parents, all that kind of thing, to be able to understand how to behave, and we model ourselves from them. Well, we're doing the same thing in this internet world. We're going to the review section on products. We listen to the testimonials, and we often end up buying something because we see before and after pictures. And it's like, that seems to be normal human psychology. But it's really interesting because there's one thing that I noticed that it means that we lack, and that is sovereignty and trust in our own instincts. I do this myself. I bought some amazing makeup the other day, except it wasn't amazing. It was terrible. And it looked terrible. And I was like, well, they were telling me that I shouldn't be doing it the way that I was doing it. So I listened, and I've now tried to do it the way they said that was better. And it's really interesting because I didn't stop to check in with myself and think, do I actually need this? I just experienced this. Oh, someone is saying this is the way to do it sense, and I followed the tribe. I'm a human design expert, guys. I literally know my decision-making strategies. I know how to make decisions, and still I listen to other people because, by the way, nowhere in human design is your decision-making strategy listen to what your friends think and do that. So when I'm looking at all of this, I know that this world of social media has set itself up on the foundations of understanding human psychology. Of course it has. It's intelligent. Why wouldn't you? But as consumers, how do we then navigate through this world to not only know what we're supposed to do and interact with from the things that are marketed to us, but when we're feeling a sense of lack or need, especially when it comes to our personal development and health, who do we go to, and how do we know that they're saying the right information? And unfortunately, my recommendation and guidance isn't ever going to be based on qualifications, unless you're talking about the Unveil Academy students, of course. That's a joke, by the way, for anyone who's not watching the video. I've become very aware living in America how much sometimes I don't translate my tone of voice when I'm trying to make a joke. But yes, it's not about qualifications, because sometimes the people who don't seem to have the on-paper qualifications have all the humanness skills that you need to understand how to resolve the problem. And that's a big part of the reason why a lot of my Unveil Academy training wasn't really skills or tools. It was how to be you in a way that can support other people's progression and development. And unfortunately, we can't look at the number of likes and comments on somebody's Instagram post to understand whether it's facts. This time last week, I shared a reel. I literally reposted someone else's content, just added a caption and made a few hashtags, and it has seen me gain hundreds of followers, thousands of likes, multiple shares, so many views. And it's like, that wasn't my audience necessarily. They're not liking any more of my posts that are actually the content that I like to share. They just followed me from a reel. And I'm not objecting to that. It's clear that if a trending audio that could be a piece of music is how to make your reels go viral, it's always going to be the people who understand how to play the system that are going to get the exposure, rather than the people who are speaking truth. And I long thought that we could just yell loud enough and suddenly, somewhere, somehow, the right words would get across and people would find the right information. I no longer think that's true. I think the realms of social media and marketing have become such that it literally isn't a place where there's a game that's winnable by integrity and honesty and just showing up. I think there are a few highlights, and I think there are a few people who will always rise above the noise. But I don't think that that we're able to just look at it and go, well, the loudest must be the best. So how do we navigate this world where we want help, usually, and we want to know that we're doing the right thing? We like to have the reassurance of other people, and yet we don't know who we can trust. And that's a really hard question. I've found myself really looking to some kind of resourcing on social media in the last few weeks as I've been moving through my own personal challenges. And I like it when I find a reel that seems to match my mood, but it doesn't change anything. And it's interesting because I just used the word resourcing. Now, if you're familiar with somatic experiencing at all, or even some forms of coaching, you will understand that resourcing is how to find the foundations of yourself amidst the noise of life. Resourcing is how you get back into your body. Resourcing is how you calm your nervous system stress responses. So if we're reaching to social media to resource us, that's where the problem lies. Because as far as I can tell, when I interact with social media from a place where I feel already resourced, I feel already secure and embodied and within my own system, I can interact with social media in a way that comes from myself towards the resonance with whatever I'm reading or looking at. And I always will click on the links of adverts and then go, nah, no, don't want that. But if I'm not self-resourced, personally resourced before I approach those kind of environments, I find myself searching for resourcing in the other. And I find myself searching for resourcing in the products that people are selling, or just the nasty ways of writing about people. I find it amazing how so many reels are out at the moment which have that audio, which is something like, feel free to paint me as the monster in your story, but don't forget to include the chapter where you created me. And I'm like, oh, what? Like, yes, we all have evolutionary journeys where our characters are formed by our interactions and our relationships. But in what universe are we wandering around blaming everyone for how we turned out? That's just not, I mean, that's failing at spirituality and doing life 101. And if anyone wants more context on that or has questions over what I mean by that, life is such that you are co-creating your reality. In that Instagram audio, the monster wasn't created by the other person. If you have become a monster in someone's story, you both did that thing. Like, you both contributed to the narrative. And there's a lot of that about. There's a lot of how can we bitch about the other? And until we understand that the way we speak about someone else is a deeper reflection on us than it is about the other, we're not going to get very far as a consciousness and a humanity. We have to recognize somehow, somewhere, that every fragment of consciousness that exists inside another human is a part of the oneness to which we are all connected. I received a lot of compliments on the way I, quote, handled the podcast that I released a few weeks ago, about the changes that have recently happened in my professional life, which was lovely. It's lovely that I showed up with the integrity that I wanted to show up with. But that wasn't an act. That was the truth. The way I have moved through huge conflict in the last few weeks and months has been owning my part in the creation of said conflict. How did I show up that it allowed that to happen? How did I contribute to the toxicity that I was living within? How did I make that part of my reality? And why did I invite that into my reality? So, minor segue away from what I was trying to talk about. But when we interact with these social media audios and we save those trending audios and we think that we're going to put a video over someone else speaking words that meant something, listen to what speaks to you. Because if what's speaking to you is those vicious 3-sentence narratives about how everyone else is to blame, it's not a problem. It's a sign that you're not feeling safe. Trust me, I saved that monster in your story audio and I was like, oh yeah, awesome. And then I was like, oh, I was resonating from a place of being under-resourced that day. And so it could speak to me because I wanted to shout, I wanted to fight. And I'm not saying that any of this is a bad thing. I'm just trying to offer insights as to how can we interact with these social media situations or any kind of marketing in a way that doesn't allow us to operate from a place of lack, where we are seeking the resource from the thing we're being shown and told to purchase or think or believe or buy into, but we're interacting with it in a way that comes from a foundation of safety and resourcing within ourselves. People ask me, in the realms of all of this stuff that I do, why I do some human design work. And to me, it's so obvious. It doesn't matter what the system is. Human design has always been something which can reorient someone back into their own embodied ability to resonate and be part of the world. It's everything about not making decisions from an under-resourced mental place where you're panicking and doing things from fear. That's all human design is. And yeah, it's a great system and choreography of incarnation and planets and parts, and it gets super complicated, but ultimately it's a tool for getting someone back into being in sovereignty in their own resourced, self-directed interaction with the world around them. And you don't need human design to be your resource. But what's important is that we recognize that when we're drawn to things from a place of lack and suffering and fear, they're going to be things which are not going to fully fill the voids that we have inside us. And that's where we get tricked and conned and told how to behave from a health perspective. I put a post on Instagram the other day because I purchased some Maui Nui venison. And I joked, I was like, I don't normally do things that Tim Ferriss tells me to do, because Tim Ferriss had just interviewed one of the co-founders of Maui Nui Venison on his podcast. And the reality is that I got a couple of comments saying, well, you're just following the trend. And it's interesting because, yeah, technically I am. I'm following this trend of getting this venison. But I listened to the podcast where I actually really found value in not just the way the company was being run, but the efforts that they were trying to do to make a difference. And also, from my perspective, the nutrient profile of the nutritional food that they were trying to sell me. There was no downside. And I allowed myself to be influenced by something that was a trend. Now, how is that different to buying the makeup that I bought? Well, I thought about it, but not more than that. I looked into it, I researched it, but I kept feeling this pull to go to do the purchase. I wasn't even mentally or physically there when I was buying makeup. I was just like, it's hot in Austin. I need makeup that'll stay on my face. How do I do this? So it's about me being in a different place, not me being a different person. And so when people say to me, how do I know who to trust on Instagram? I kind of say, use your gut. If it seems too good to be true, usually is. If they're selling a product, think harder. And I mean a course, a leaflet, a download, a supplement. All of this stuff changes our motivation. In this very episode, I'm going to segue into talking to you about the stuff that I'm selling right now. There is no way that I cannot have a change in my energy system when I move from, I really want to share this because it seems like relevant information, and how can I encourage people to be more resourced when they go on social media so that they don't make stupid decisions and follow people who are telling them to starve themselves and do keto or whatever it is. But I'm about to segue into, this is what I want you to buy from me. And I'm not going to sit here and go, because I'm better than everyone else. I am going to say, resource yourself. And if you resonate with what I do, have at it. And it's really interesting because I have recently released a few different things, and the orders have come flooding in, which has been lovely, but it is from my diehard fans who've been alongside me forever. And I didn't realize how just continuing to show up as yourself and continuing to be authentic and have integrity, it's not going to make you uber famous immediately, but it is going to keep people around for longer. And it's not that selling products is a bad thing. How can you reach people if you're not selling something? And not everyone who's selling a product is bad. It's just we have to be in a place where we really know who we are first before we can interact with the world in a way where we're making the decisions that are actually aligned for us. So that's theoretical. How do you resource yourself? Well, of of course you could learn your human design, but as I've already explained, it's not enough of a resource sometimes. The important thing for being resourced is finding places where you feel safe. Now, that can be literally a physical location. It can be with a person. It can be a practice that you do. It can be mudras, which are hand movements, which allow you to get back into a space. It could be that you do a sun salutation and it really just resets your nervous system and brings everything down. It could be a breathwork practice. It could be hugging your dog. It could be going for a walk in nature. It could be calling someone up and just getting all of the out of you, and then you can drop into a place of calm. The reality is, the precise nature of the resource doesn't matter. What you're looking for are the 1, 2, 3, 4 habits that allow you to find center again. For me, I like to play music. I like to listen to music. Music is always really therapeutic for me because frequencies make a difference to me. I have a couple of friends or my mum who I will call, and it will be, okay, I just need to get this out of me and now I'm in a place. I will read Gene Keys books. I will actually find the voices, especially listening to some of the YouTube videos with Richard Rudd, because it's a voice that reconnects me back to calmingness. And all of those things help me to find my own center. Sometimes the biggest resource is just remembering to drop into my body. And that in and of itself allows me to find my way through to then being able to interact with the world around me in a better way. If you feel like you don't have the ability to find resources, my guidance would be stop trying to make it the ultimate safety. I have a interesting relationship with the word safety. I know it's what's necessary for healing and for being in a calm, receiving place. And I also know that it's been my hardest thing to do. It's why I talk about it. It's why I teach about it. Like, I have had to learn how to find safety in amongst the realms of unsafety. So I first started to find my resources when I realized that they didn't need to reset me back to ground zero so that I was totally surrendered and zen within my being. They simply needed to take me one step closer to that place. And that is enough of a resource. And so if you're on social media and someone's giving you the 12-step routine for resourcing or the 60-minute breathwork exercise, etc., or even the one-step routine that just doesn't fit with you and doesn't feel easy for you, that's not your resource. A lot of times a resource is just snuggling with a pet, because you can't really think about anything else whilst you're doing that, because you're just with another being that is nourishing. And so don't try and make it the elite level of resource. Just needs to take you one step further than you currently are. How do you know when you're ready? You have to experiment. In my book, I feel like I spent a lot of time waiting to feel ready to do something, or waiting to feel like I was in the right position and now was okay. I think I realized after a lot of waiting that sometimes it's just about doing the thing, and sometimes it's just about trying and realizing as you try and fail that you weren't ready. And that's when you learn what readiness is. And what happens if you get it wrong? Well, the makeup, I returned and got a full refund. Like, there's no big kind of consequence to purchasing products, usually, because there's laws that protect us consumers. But what about following the wrong practices? What about finding resource in the quote wrong place? It's at this point where I had to develop a real trust in the flow and the timing and the lifespan that we all live. Even though I know I've been in some pretty terrible situations in my life, I've never been in the wrong place. I've just been in a place that wasn't totally perfect, but gave me something. And so when I find clients come to me frustrated that they followed some dietary plan that someone gave them on the internet and they've been doing it for months and it has shown no improvement, and they're angry and resentful of the wasted time, I always say to them it wasn't wasted time, because it can't be wasted time if it gets you somewhere closer to a point of finding the thing that is for you. And ultimately, I'm not naive enough to think that everyone has the resources to spend money to see health professionals or coaches or somatic experiencing practitioners or all the things, because people don't have those resources, especially in this economic climate. So we do need to find the resources somewhere else. And that is when we get to trying to find the free downloads. I have subscribed to so many exercise, workout, membership things in my time. And I still don't think I found the right one. And I have loved like trying to do them all. But I just think that sometimes we keep looking until we find it. And maybe that's a part of life. Maybe getting it wrong is just exactly what we're supposed to do. And that's how we learn. But it can feel much more hard to swallow when that is, you have to learn the hard way with your health and with your life. The only thing that I have been able to do as an attempt to fix, which is a bad word, but just upset the apple cart on some of these problems, is to build my training academy. And it's been really interesting because it's been a very difficult year. But as we get to the end of it, I'm kind of realizing and remembering why I did it in the first place. When I look at the way the students of the Unveil Academy are coaching now, and I witness them using the techniques, but also showing up in ways that is just deeply, deeply nourishing to humanity, I am astounded at the quality of the individuals that were attracted towards the Unveil Academy and their evolution during the last 11 months. I listed it off in my head the other day of the personal transformations that each of my students have gone through, just for my own like thought process. I just thought through where they were in September of 2022 and where they are now as we reach graduation week in July 2023. And I intended that coach training certification to be much more about us as human beings, a personal evolution to become a incredibly well-trained and highly skilled healing professional. And that was my hope. And I didn't know that it was going to happen. But what has happened is that every single person in this current cohort has been through an enormous personal journey of really deepening into being a resourced human themselves who has the capacity to resource other people. They've all got different opinions and slightly different ways that they do things, and they're all really great at what they do. And it was in the last few weeks when I was reviewing the material and rebuilding websites and thinking about what's next for the Unveil Academy that I decided that I'm going to run this training again as soon as possible. And that means that if we have enough students for the September 23 to July 24 cohort, we will start again this September. So that's September 2023, if you're listening non-chronologically in the interweb futures. That's soon. It's going to be another intensive year of education. And I have changed a lot of things about it. I've changed the pricing structure to make it easier for people to access. I have changed the means of a few elements of the delivery. I have pulled a few weeks out of the training simply because we needed a few more breaks. Honestly, it was a lot of content. I have also built all of the standalone courses for coaches who want to develop their human design skills and implement that into coaching, or for coaches who already feel like they've got the rest of the material but want to do some of the health coaching stuff. There's also a student coach option, which is now fully available, purchasable immediately, where you can jump in and get all of the several months of training as a baseline. And every single person who does those courses can then have access to the full training at a future year, should they wish to, with a huge discount off the full price. It's so interesting to me to segue into this kind of like sales portion, when really what I'm just continuing to do is tell you guys what I do and what I'm trying to do to change the crazy that is the coaching industry. I have looked in the last few months at the coaching qualifications that are out there, and I have really reflected on the work that I've done with my students in the last 11 months. And I am so proud of what the Unveil Academy has managed to achieve. And to me, it really doesn't matter if we go again this September or there isn't enough demand and so we need to wait till the following year. It really doesn't matter. But what I wanted to say to the universe with this is, no, I believe in this and I believe in it, and I want it to be available for any student, any person who wants to step in the direction of having their own self-empowerment, but also to transforming the way they show up in the world professionally. So I am. And so that's awesome. And I'm really excited to kind of begin again with those things and to step into a world where I get to really lean into the teacher archetype, which is a huge part of who I am and what I'm here to do, and something that I haven't had the easiest of years. And to get through these 11 months, still retaining that teacher archetype and owning all the ways that I didn't show up well enough in that archetype and all the ways that I'm going to do better in the future, it's been a huge learning curve for me. And I get to take those lessons and bring them to the Unveil Academy every next step that we take, which is awesome. And I love it. The other thing that you might have seen that's now available from Unveil is the portal reports, and those are all to do with human design and gene keys. They're an invitation into your specific portal opening by giving you a real insight into your human design chart, your gene keys hologenetic profile, and not in a small way either. There's type, there's strategy, there's authority for human design, there's your strengths and weaknesses. There's literally me keynoting how you're here to show up in this life. And then within Gene Keys, we go through all of the sequences, and I then tie it all together and show you how to feel about your gene keys and human design working in concert, and offer you invitations into the contemplations that might be next given your specific dynamics and variables. I also have filmed 3 embedded videos in that portal report, which basically gives you a lot of the human design and gene keys basics, and also a big informational download on lines in the human design and gene key system. There's a lot of information in there. It's been actually a delight to be creative in that perspective, and it will be a great starting point for anyone who's thinking about doing the human design training from the Unveil Academy. Yeah, and then the Alethea group is transforming too, and it is a pleasure of mine to be on the journey where I state something and then I evolve it as it goes. And we're really defining the messaging that we have in terms of really supporting every facet of each human being's ecosystem, which means working in every single area for humans and individuals and corporations who come through the Alethea group and enter into our concierge services. So it's all changing. I am also taking a bit of a break. So I am going to be heading back to the UK for a few weeks over August, and things with this podcast may slow down a little, especially as if I'm launching again in September. The launch date for September 23 to July 24 is going to be, I think it's the 21st of September. All of this information is going to be in the show notes. So there's a lot of things. You guys may notice that I don't have scripts when I'm doing this stuff, so I've probably forgotten things. Things will be in the show notes. I basically came on today and I wanted to do a solo episode because I wanted to just be really honest and open about the fact that when I do things and when I create things and when I, spend hours building websites and stuff like that, I do it for 2 reasons. I do it, one, because I love it and it makes me happy and it's really distracting and I'm actually really quite good at it. But the second thing is, I think my constant orientation in this life isn't about how I can support other people. It actually isn't. I'm going to be really honest. My primary orientation to every decision I make is, how can I be better at being me? And I love that about myself. I don't know when it landed in my world. I think a lot of my illness has to do with how that has become my kind of North Star. But when I bring out something different, or when I recommend something different, or when I try something different, it's all based on that ethos. And I'm very lucky that I know what my driving ethos even, and my North Star is. I'm incredibly lucky, and I don't forget that for a moment. But if you don't have a guiding ethos, I'd recommend thinking about what drives you, what makes you get up in the morning and do the thing that you do. And that doesn't have to be anything amazing as a sexy, huge public facing job. It doesn't matter what you do. I'm really interested as to the contemplation of how we do anything. And so if you this is coming because I had a comment recently from someone who was like, oh, you do so much and you change so much all the time. It's like, yeah, I do. I do change a lot. I like changing. I like evolving. I like realizing how I can show up better, how I can give more, how I can do me in a way that is with more integrity and with more love. And that's always going to mean that the products that you see available from my companies shift and change, and my availability changes and things move. I'm always trying to make it better. Like, I don't think I've ever released a website and not wanted to improve it drastically. And so that's what I get to play in this life. And so I think that for me, selfish as it might be, my driving force is, how can I do this better? Because I'm the only one I've got any say over. And so if being in the Unveil or Alethea world is something that is appealing to you, it's more than likely because this is a part of how you're built too. And I'd be delighted to have you as part of our family, wandering through these evolutions and educations and systems and learnings and the portal reports and whatever we offer. I love having you guys along for the ride. I love the comments I get about the podcast. I love the way that I'm told that you guys see me, and it's very consistent what people say about me, for good and for bad, by the way. And I enjoy doing this. I enjoy being really open to whatever comes next in my life, because I'm kind of on this crazy, wild hero's journey, mythology thing that is really selfish in many ways. But in that selfishness, I get to be of huge service. And so, with all of that, if you've made it to the end of this podcast, congratulations. I have no idea what I've been saying for the last however long I've been talking, but please check out the show notes. Please come over to the Unveil Academy, leave me comments, check out the portal reports. There is a discount for all of July, which isn't very long if you're listening to this as it's released. I'm keeping the discount open till my birthday on August the 3rd. That's why that date, by the way, for the people who were saying, why August the 3rd? That seems really random. It's my birthday. So up until my birthday, there is a discount code available. It will be in the show notes of this podcast. Yeah. And with that, thank you for listening this week. I will keep you posted on whether there's break weeks or whether I'm taking a summer holiday from the podcast. A lot depends on what falls into my life. I have a really exciting interview lined up in September, which I'm so thrilled about, and I cannot wait to bring you. And there's more coming down the line. So with that, all that remains to be said is thank you for being part of my little team of people traveling through this life on this crazy rock that we call Earth. It feels like I am very nourished when I think of this community and the people who love me enough to continue showing up in these little worlds. So thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you next time on the Unveil podcast, whenever that might be.